evening. Hi, I'm leo.liemesak from Fund Resources, and tonight I'm joined by Kobi Lane, who is the winner of Planning Institute of Australia Young Planner of the Year. Good evening, Kobi. How are you?
Good. And how are you going?
Very good, very good. Thanks for making the time. I hope it's not too cold in Brisbane, is it? Are you
Oh
in?
no, I'm on sunny Gold Coast, so I've managed to.
Oh,
It's cold for us, which is probably warm
okay.
for Melbourne.
Yes. Well, look, thank you so much for making the time. I guess it goes without saying congratulations on winning the award. I guess my first question is, how are you feeling about it all?
Oh, it's a little surreal.
Yeah.
I didn't get to go down to the awards. I've got an upcoming surgery, so I'm sort of getting all prepped for that at the moment. But I was at a Mexican joint with a couple of friends and margaritas, the things that go along with it. But I got the news and we all celebrated. The whole restaurant started celebrating. I
Oh,
don't
wow.
I don't even think they know what they were celebrating about, but uh, it was a good vibe. And then I guess just the outpouring of support, which is not something, you know, what these awards are based off. You never really the efforts that you're putting in volunteering and just I guess being a good person. You don't
Mhm.
expect these things to come, so you sort of have that opportunity or position to sort of look back and go, oh, okay, there actually has been an impact. And it's good to know that there's been positivity out of the things that have occurred over time.
That's great. So did someone send you a text telling you that you've
Yeah.
won?
So there's Nicole
Yeah.
Bennett, who's our state manager. So she sent me a text and then a photo of the trophy. And I had they'd give me a sort of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge that I should really come up with a presentation. So I sent Nicole the speech. So apparently it was well received, which is good.
It was a really good speech. Well done.
Oh, thank
Because it was obviously being delivered in the whole theater, and you
you.
got a lot of claps from that. So that was a great speech.
Perfect. That's good to know.
That's good. That's good. Well, I guess for us who don't really know who you are,
Hmm.
tell us a bit more about Kobe. What's your career been like so far?
Oh, geez, what's it been like 6 years now? Geez, that flies fast. Yeah, so I started even before, I mean, I think we'll get onto that a bit later, but I don't think it's not many people start as a planner. I didn't.
Mhm.
I guess my first role within planning was actually compliance, and at
Yep.
the time, I didn't think it was. I thought, oh, I failed. I've done a planning degree and I've become a compliance officer, and I thought the world was over, as you do when you just graduate.
Yeah.
But it's actually the one of the biggest assets. It's actually set up my career, if anything. I
Mhm.
found a niche that I really enjoy, which is planning law. Um,
Right.
so I was a compliance officer in a regional council called Scenic Rim, which is about an hour west of
Mhm.
the Gold Coast. I did that for about just under a year, and a job opportunity came up. As they do in rural councils, they don't usually have people to fill them in, so I was
Mhm.
able to step into a planning role. And I guess throughout my even before planning, I've always enjoyed teaching. I've done tutoring of all sorts of courses outside of university and tutoring and all sorts of bits and pieces. So I had an opportunity to sort of learn the role, then start teaching. So I started a student placement program with one of the local
Yep.
universities. Um, Worked in a team leader role when COVID happened, so learning about
Right.
transitions, rural council, that was strange.
Yep.
And then on towards a senior planner.
Yep.
Um, and I overall was that council for 5 years.
Mhm.
I've had stints in private. I'm
Mhm.
currently back in private industry at the moment on the Gold Coast, and I
Yep.
also was able to work for the Queensland Police Service, which was really interesting, seeing how police stations are designed and planned for police housing and working across the entire state, which is amazing because I thought coming from a rural council of three planners and
Yep.
jumping to a state organization, you'll be jumping into a large team, but I jumped into a team of 3 people again, so, which is a broad scope.
Yeah.
I've been lucky in that sense to sort of, I like small teams. I don't really want to be part of a gigantic organization. I think you'll just get lost in it. So I feel that I've been lucky. I've worked in compliance, planning law, tourism, native title, and now I'm working on a 25,000 lot subdivision, like just ridiculous sort of projects. So I feel that I'm pretty lucky.
Sounds like it's been a pretty diverse career so far.
Yeah.
If we were to go back in time a little bit further than that, was planning a career you had in mind during school? Why and how did you come around becoming a planner?
Yeah, the whole how often does one actually want to be a planner thing? Hopefully that sentiment changes. But no, so I remember it was like year 10, and the careers advisor comes around and gives you like a 30 questionnaire saying this will set you up for your life sort of thing. And back then it was chemical engineer. Not even slightest an engineer. I do have the mathematical ability, but I don't want to use it. So then it was
very specific.
Yeah, it was just like at the time it was like which one pays the most. So then, which was a really stupid way of looking at what you want to do with your life. So then it was I'm very good at drawing. If I see something, I can draw it. I pull it right back to paper. So I thought, okay, I'll get into architecture. Well, I didn't try in school, so that didn't help. So I went to TAFE. I did building design and technology and architectural drafting, and then jumped into landscape architecture. I think I lasted 2.5 months and quit, realizing that architecture was not for me. And so I sort of sat at this crossroads. I went, okay, well, I like dealing with people. I like design, but obviously not enough to be an architect. I like maths, but obviously not enough to be an engineer. I like science, but I don't want to be a scientist. And so I was sort of sitting, pondering, and someone said, why not planning? It was the mixture of all the things that I like without necessarily having to be a specialist in any one of them. And that's how I fell into it. And I've loved it ever since.
Great. And when you started learning it, did that work out to be what you thought it was going to be? Because I feel like I've met with a lot of planners, and most of them, to quote them, fell into it. Is that similar to your experience? And I suppose my main question is, a lot of us when we were younger, we were explaining, this job will be like that and that job will be like that. And then you studied it and you go, hang on a minute. So I'm just curious to see whether, based on all the advice, when you actually studied planning, was it what you thought it was going to be?
I guess I didn't really have big expectations as to what it was going to be. I mean, I'd come up back of trying things and not liking it. And I feel like I have a very different appreciation of what university is actually there for. There's the age-old thing. I went to university and I used none of it in my job. The point of university was to teach you how to learn and where to pull the knowledge from, and that's my key takeaway from uni. So I think after doing it, there was courses on Indigenous planning, there was courses on environmental psychology, which I ended up doing a thesis on that, and all sorts of bits and pieces. So I feel like it wasn't, if I were to have had an opinion on what planning would have been, no, it probably wouldn't have been what I expected it to be. In saying that, it's much more than I could have ever expected it to be, because it's so diverse, and you can sort of, pick your own adventure. You can really plan it so diverse that you can take it where you want to take it.
Yeah. Going back a little bit to your earlier comment about you started as an enforcement and you thought it was a bit of a failure. Why do you think that was? I guess I understand the differences in the roles. I think if you could be a good enforcement officer, I reckon you could be a really good planner. But at the time, I suppose, what made you think it was a failure?
So I'm sitting in at that time, so we're talking about 20, 2018. Been a part of the
Mm-hmm.
Planning Institute for about 2 years at that point. Still quite
Mm-hmm.
involved. And I was going to events, and I got a bunch of planners telling me about the different projects they're working on. And I
Yeah.
went, cool. Well, I'm the guy who's coming up going, well, you've done the wrong thing, and my
Yeah.
result. But it was effectively looking at, and I didn't appreciate it at that time because it was a bit of, I thought I had imposter syndrome and that I'm coming into a room full of planners. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I have a planning degree, I'm not utilizing it in the same
Mm-hmm.
way. I've
Yeah.
come to appreciate now that what I was actually doing, what I was actually learning at that time was how do I write an approval or a policy that
Mm-hmm.
actually translates to what the original intent was. That's actually what I learned out of the process. But at the time, I felt like an imposter.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. So you've been a planner for about 6 years now, as you said. You've done many, many different things for a variety of slightly different roles here and there. If you were to sort of summarize that time, what has been the most rewarding aspect of being a planner?
Ooh,
Or maybe aspects, if you have
yeah,
more than one or two.
that's all right. I'd say the most rewarding aspect, and it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I do a lot of reflection, and
Mm-hmm.
still now do it. It's the ability to serve. I think that was part of my speech that I had that in is
Mm-hmm.
to serve the community. But if you go, okay, what is serving? It's say I had farmers that I was dealing with at Scenic Rim some of them can't read, and that's okay. They're great at farming. I'm terrible at farming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah.
Uh, and they want to expand the cattle farm by 300,000 head or whatever on a massive farm. But they don't get that there's regulations and policies and all these weird things they have to do. Well, I can translate all that jargon into something that actually means something and then go one further going, well, I know that you don't know how to do it, but if you do step A, B, C, D, that I'll put in an email or a memo or whatever it may be, or point you in the right direction, that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on needless reports because I can do that for you. And when it's in
Yeah.
government, it's for free. I don't have to charge you. And I don't like the idea that it's the grand irony. I do work in private. So we do have value in the fact that we've studied and we've worked. We know how to navigate legislation, and I see that. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate the fact that as planners, some planners, we don't have to charge people for things. And it's purely out
Yeah.
of the good of our heart that we can help them. And that's probably one of the most rewarding aspects of planning is the ability to give back and not expect anything in return.
Wonderful. Flipping that, then, what do you think it could be as a planner, it could be as a young person? What are the challenges or the issues or the things that you feel like we could do this better in your industry and in your role?
Mm.
What would they be?
I think, I think there's probably two out of that I can think of off the top of my head. I think it's even before we get into planning is actually what is planning.
Mm-hmm.
Planning Institute did a video on it, which I think is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But similar thing is if you're say 15 years old and your parents ask you what you want to do, lawyer, doctor, engineer, nurse,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things that you have in your head, you can have an idea of it. But if you ask a school student what a planner does, they haven't got a clue. You ask a planner what a planner does, they probably can't describe it to you, and I probably can't either. And I think somewhere along the line, with all our technology and the ability to provide information, we still haven't figured out that way to provide a nice, simple message to someone who's young that this is a real possibility and this is a career that could transcend the way that people live over 50 to 100 years. I think
Mm-hmm.
we can do better as a profession in translating that. And there are a lot of movements at the moment, even in the education subcommittee that I sit in, is engaging with school students, is
Yep.
understanding that
Yep.
there is a career out there. But I guess if then you go, okay, well, just say they've picked planning, then what's an issue? I think and I think some people think it's been time tested too much. I think we haven't done enough personally. Is engagement with
Mm-hmm.
First Nations.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had some good strides in it, but I think we need true, meaningful engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
However one views the votes that didn't go through in the end, that's one's opinion. I think that there's more work in what it means to engage with First Nations individuals, with groups, with clans. How is it that they live? How do we understand their culture? How is that implemented in our education? I think having worked for Queensland Police and understanding how native title works and how unbelievably confusing that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I only got that working in the state department. And I feel
Yeah.
that, whilst the state was looking at it, which is great, I've worked in local government, I've worked in private firms, we never touched it.
Yeah.
That's not to say that we have to, it's not that native title has to be the thing that we do, but why isn't it that we're not even aware of it? So I think there's an education piece that I think we as young planners or planners in general have a duty to understand. And that's another part of my presentation was travel. You can't be a good planner if you don't travel. And that doesn't mean you have to be international. As much as it's great to go outside, it's also good to explore your own backyard. But taking it one further, it's not just jumping in a car and traveling. It's who are you meeting? What are the people? What do they do? What's their history? Traveling is understanding the place in which you live and understanding people. So to be a good planner, you need to travel.
Brilliant advice. Put you in a small spotlight now. If I were to ask you now, how do you define what is a planner? What would you say?
Planner, I'd say, off the cuff, is an individual who has a duty of care. I do like to use that phrase, duty of care, to implementing long-term strategies for the betterment of society. And it is quite a broad, and I'm by no means have I hit that nail on the head in terms of I want to be a planner now. But it's an understanding that, whilst there's myriads, be it transport, social, rec, development, assessment, strategic, whilst there's like nurses, there's all sorts of types, but there's an understanding based, a doctor saves people, we plan for society for their betterment, bang. And I think that's what it is, but it's our duty of care to society.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've explained the core of the role. I suppose there are ways for you to do that. As you know, there's many types of being a planner, but I think you've sort of nailed the core purpose of the role. So I guess looking towards the future, I suppose. What's in it for you now? What would you like to achieve? What are your goals? What's next for Kobi?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Having, you think you aim for something, you hit it, and you go, oh, okay, that's we're going to put that past, reflect, recompose. Where we take. I got a very, very nice surprise. I think it was late last week. The Planning Institute, which they haven't even advertised it that much. The Young Planner of the Year actually gets a bursary. So
great!
I presented $5,000 to further my planning knowledge, and that can be all sorts of ways. It can be in a course, or it can be in conferences, or it can be in a form of a study tour. So the former winner, Bumfu, is off to, I think it was, what was it? France and somewhere else. She's off overseas to look at hydro projects. So I've got a meeting with Hatch. I think it's an engineering architecture firm. So I'm meeting one of their partners there to understand. I'm quite interested in what they call depressogenic environments, which is environments which foster certain types of, not quite feelings, but it can make one feel more depressed. Or the alternative is what we call salutogenic, which is to make one feel better without realizing it. And I think it's a form of urban design, urbanism, placemaking. I'm quite interested in that. So currently designing a study tour somewhere. I don't know where yet.
Yeah.
Got a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
So sometime next year, I'll be setting off. It definitely will be overseas. If I'll get the opportunity, I'll take it.
Yeah, of course.
Somewhere overseas to do a study tour.
Yep.
And at some point, I'm also looking at doing some international work. My partner's Canadian, so she's trying to edge me that way. She's probably going to win, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, there's all sorts of things in store. For the immediate future, I'm just taking it easy. Like I said, I've got a surgery coming up. I've got three weeks till surgery. So I'm looking forward just to a period of rest. I think it's well deserved. But
So.
it'll be a rest and then an explosion of more things from me. So.
Well, look, mate, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Massive congratulations again. And hopefully the surgery all goes well and you get to recover and rest up. And the next few months and the next year will be a great year for you.